Making Ideas Happen, Overcoming the Obstacles Between Vision and Reality by Scott Belsky. Picture this. It's a freezing January morning in Washington, D.C., and you're rushing through a packed subway station during the worst of rush hour. Everyone's bundled up in coats, clutching briefcases, their minds already at the office before their bodies arrive. Right there, in the middle of all this chaos, a young guy in a baseball cap leans against the wall. He pulls out a violin, an old, gorgeous instrument that doesn't quite catch the eye in the station's dim lighting. Then he starts to play. And the music? It's absolutely stunning. Complex, emotional, flawless. He's performing some of the most challenging and beautiful pieces ever composed. Bach, Schubert, the kind of music that usually fills the world's most prestigious concert halls. But here it is, bouncing off the concrete walls of l'Enfant Plaza metro station. For the next 45 minutes, over 1,000 people rush past him. Accountants, lawyers, government workers, parents dropping kids at school. Almost nobody stops. A handful toss $1 or $2 into his open violin case, without even slowing down. Just one person actually recognizes him. When he finally packs up, he's made a little over $32. Here's what almost everyone missed that morning. This wasn't some struggling street musician trying to make rent. This was Joshua Bell, one of the most celebrated violinists on the entire planet. Days earlier, he'd sold out a concert in Boston, where the cheapest tickets went for $100. And that violin he was playing? A Stradivarius from 1713, worth about $3.5 million. A world-class genius, performing masterpieces on a priceless instrument, and the world just walked right by. This story isn't just a fascinating social experiment. It's basically a parable for one of the most frustrating truths about life, something Scott Belsky digs into throughout his international bestseller, Making Ideas Happen. Here's the truth. Genius isn't enough. Talent isn't enough. Even having the most brilliant idea in the world isn't enough. We all have ideas, right? Ideas for a business, a novel, a piece of art, a solution to some problem we're facing. They light up in our minds with so much promise, so much excitement. But then what happens? For most of us, they just fade away. They get buried under the noise of daily life, the same way Joshua Bell's music got lost in the morning commute. This book is all about closing that heartbreaking gap between vision and reality. It's not about having more ideas. It's about actually making the ideas you already have come to life. Belsky spent over 6 years studying the habits of the world's most productive creative people and teams at places like Disney, Google, and IDEO. And he discovered they all share a hidden framework. They don't just rely on luck or random bursts of genius. They use a specific set of skills around organization, community, and leadership. So here's what I'm promising you. By the time we're done here, you'll understand this framework. You'll see why someone with average creativity but excellent organization will almost always make a bigger impact than a disorganized genius. And you'll walk away with a practical method that can genuinely change what happens to your own great ideas. Let's dive in. Ever wonder why some people seem to effortlessly turn their ideas into reality, while the rest of us are sitting on a graveyard of half-finished projects and forgotten dreams? It's a painful question, and it sits right at the heart of Scott Belsky's work. He starts with this powerful, almost startling equation. It's simple, but it'll completely change how you think about success. Creativity times organization equals impact. Think about that for a second. It's multiplication. If you've got incredible creativity, let's say 100 out of 100, but 0 organization, what's your impact? 100 times 0 is still 0. All that brilliant, raw talent adds up to nothing. We all know someone like this, right? That friend who has a dozen amazing ideas every day but never follows through on any of them. Now imagine someone with half the creativity, a 50, but just a bit of organization, maybe a 2. Their impact is 100. And someone with average creativity but world-class organization, their impact goes through the roof. Belsky points to people like novelist James Patterson. Critics might debate his literary merit, but nobody can argue with his impact. He's sold over 150 million books worldwide. At one point, 1 out of every 15 hardcover novels sold in America was his. How? Because before becoming a writer, he was the CEO of a major ad agency. He's a master of organization and execution. He built a system, basically a factory, for making his ideas happen. So that's the first big lesson. We spend so much time chasing inspiration, waiting for that perfect idea, when we should be building our capacity for organization. Because organization isn't just about having a tidy desk. It's the engine that transforms creative fuel into forward motion. But here's the thing. For most of us, especially creative types, the word organization feels like a prison. We love chaos. We thrive on spontaneity. So how do we build a system that works with our creative brains instead of against them? This is where Belsky introduces his central framework, the single most practical and powerful tool in the entire book. He calls it the action method. The action method is built on this beautifully simple premise. Everything in your life is a project. Planning a birthday party? That's a project. Applying to colleges? Project. Writing that screenplay you've been dreaming about? Definitely a project. And every single project, no matter how big or small, breaks down into just 3 components. 1. Action steps. 2. Backburner items. 3. References. That's it. Let's break each one down, because understanding this is like getting handed a key to a locked room in your mind. First up, action steps. These are the lifeblood of any project. They're the concrete, specific, non-negotiable tasks that actually move you forward. An action step isn't something vague like, work on my novel. That's too big, too intimidating. An action step is, write 500 words of Chapter 2. It's call the programmer about that bug. It's research 3 potential venues for the event. Belsky says every action step should start with a verb, call, write, research, mock up, update. This simple trick makes them feel immediate and doable. They're sacred. In any meeting or brainstorm session, your main job isn't just taking notes. It's hunting for action steps. You need to capture them, assign an owner, even if that's you, and treat them with reverence. Because without action steps, ideas are just pleasant daydreams. But what about all those other ideas that pop up, the interesting ones you can't act on right now? That's where the second component comes in, backburner items. This is your space for maybe someday. It's that business idea you might start in 5 years. It's a feature you'd love to add to your app, but you don't have the budget yet. The backburner is crucial because it gives these baby ideas a safe place to live without cluttering your main focus. You don't have to act on them, but you also don't have to forget them. Belsky suggests having a backburner ritual. Maybe on the last Sunday of every month, you review your list. Some items will have become irrelevant, and you can delete them. But occasionally, a backburner item suddenly becomes timely, and you can transform it into a new project with its own action steps. Finally, there are references. This is everything else. Meeting notes, sketches, articles you saved, phone numbers. It's the information you might need while working on your action steps. The key is that references aren't actionable. You need a simple system to file them away, maybe a folder for each project, or even just a single chronological pile, so they give you peace of mind without getting in the way of what truly matters. Taking action. By viewing the world through this lens, action steps, backburner items, and references, you start living with what Belsky calls a bias toward action. Your energy isn't spread thin across 1,000 vague possibilities anymore. It's focused, like a laser, on the very next step that'll move you forward. So you've tamed your inner chaos with the action method. You're capturing action steps and actually making progress. But here's where Belsky reveals the second major force that determines whether an idea lives or dies. And this force exists entirely outside of you. It's the forces of community. The romantic myth of the lone genius, working away in isolation until they emerge with a masterpiece? Complete fiction. Ideas don't happen in a vacuum. They're shaped, refined, and pushed forward by the people around us. But harnessing these forces requires a pretty significant mindset shift. First, you need to understand what kind of creative person you are. Belsky identifies 3 distinct types, and seeing yourself in one of them can be genuinely eye-opening. There are the dreamers. Dreamers are brilliant idea generators. They live in a world of endless possibility. They're inspiring and exciting to be around. But they struggle to stay focused. They jump from one grand vision to the next, often leaving a trail of unfinished projects behind them. They're pure creative energy, but without a grounding force, that energy just dissipates. Then there are the doers. Doers are masters of logistics. When a dreamer has a wild idea, the doer's mind immediately jumps to practical questions. How would that actually work? What's the budget? What are the first 3 steps? They're grounded, organized, reliable. They find deep satisfaction in execution, in breaking down a huge vision into manageable tasks. They're the engine of progress. Finally, there are the incrementalists. These are the rare people who can comfortably switch between both modes. They can dream big, then roll up their sleeves and build the detailed plan to make it happen. They're often serial entrepreneurs, starting multiple projects because they have this unique ability to both conceive and execute. Now, you might think the goal is becoming an incrementalist, but Belsky shows that each type has its own strengths and, more importantly, its own fatal flaw when working alone. A dreamer without a doer never finishes anything. A doer without a dreamer may execute flawlessly, but on ideas that lack real vision. And an incrementalist, because they can do everything, often tries to do too much, spreading themselves so thin that no single project reaches its full potential. What's the solution? Partnership. The most powerful creative forces in history have been partnerships between these different types. A dreamer paired with a doer is nearly unstoppable. Think of fashion visionaries like Calvin Klein or Ralph Lauren, each paired with a world-class business partner who turned their creative dreams into global empires. Or the founders of Threadless, the online t-shirt company. One founder, a self-proclaimed fire hose of ideas, was the dreamer. The other, the doer, would sift through those ideas, focus the team, and lay the groundwork for execution. Recognizing whether you're a dreamer, a doer, or an incrementalist lets you seek out people who complement you, who fill in your gaps. It's the first step in building your community. But once you have a partner or team, you face the next big hurdle, the fear of sharing your idea. Our natural instinct is protecting our ideas, keeping them secret until they're perfect. Belsky argues this is one of the deadliest mistakes you can make. He urges us to share ideas liberally. He points to Chris Anderson, the editor-in-chief of Wired magazine. Before Anderson writes his best-selling books, he beta tests all his core ideas on his blog. He gives them away for free. Why? Because he knows the community will make them better. The collective intelligence of his readers will find the flaws, ask the hard questions, and ultimately help him sharpen his arguments. By the time the book comes out, it's already been road-tested by thousands of brilliant minds. Sharing your ideas does 2 critical things. First, it refines them. Second, and maybe more importantly, it creates accountability. Once you tell people you're working on something, it becomes real. It exists outside your own head. People will ask you about it. They'll expect updates. This gentle pressure is an incredible force for keeping you focused, especially when you hit what Belsky calls the project plateau. The project plateau is that long, difficult stretch in the middle of a project where the initial excitement has faded, but the finish line is still nowhere in sight. It's the 99% perspiration Thomas Edison talked about. This is where most ideas die, and the most tempting escape from the plateau is the thrill of a shiny new idea. But when you have a community watching, a community you're accountable to, you're way more likely to push through the hard part. That community also becomes a source of feedback. But Belsky cautions that not all feedback is created equal. He introduces this powerful technique for developing talent called appreciations. Instead of just pointing out what's wrong with someone's work, you ask people to share what they most appreciated, the parts that were alive, the moments that resonated. This approach helps you build on your strengths rather than just obsessing over your weaknesses. It's a way of refining work that builds morale and confidence instead of crushing it. Finally, Belsky talks about the hidden power of competition. He tells the story of Noah Kalina, a photographer who decided to take a picture of himself every single day. He did this for 6 years as a quiet, personal project. He had no real plan for it, until one day he saw another photographer, Ahri Lee, who'd done a similar project over 3 years and turned it into a video montage. Seeing her work was the catalyst. It was that spark of competition that pushed Kalina to finally assemble his own 6 years of photos into a video called Every Day. It went viral on YouTube, becoming one of the most watched videos of all time and launching his career. Competition isn't something to fear. It's a force that can jolt us out of complacency and into action. So you've mastered your own organization. You've learned to harness the forces of your community. But there's one final component, the one that ties everything together and determines whether your idea can scale and sustain itself over time. This is the third and final force, leadership capability. And here, Belsky makes a crucial point. Leadership isn't just about managing other people. It starts with leading yourself. The journey of making an idea happen is filled with psychological barriers. One of the biggest is what Seth Godin calls the lizard brain. Anatomically, it's the amygdala, the most primitive part of our brain. Its only jobs are being hungry, scared, selfish, and horny. It's pure survival mode. And every time you get close to shipping your project, sending that manuscript, launching the website, putting your art on display, the lizard brain screams. It says, they're gonna laugh at you. You're going to fail. Play it safe. Have another meeting. It's the voice of resistance. And it's the source of the self-sabotage that keeps so many brilliant projects from ever seeing daylight. Godin's advice is to recognize that voice for what it is, an ancient, irrational survival instinct, and ship anyway. Make shipping an obligation, regardless of the outcome. The reason he's had so many successes is because he's also had so many failures. He just keeps shipping. Leading yourself also means overhauling the reward systems that have been drilled into us since childhood. In school, we work for the A. At our first jobs, we work for the paycheck and the boss's approval. These are short-term rewards. But bold, long-term creative projects often have no short-term rewards. The payoff might be years away. So how do you stay motivated? You have to create your own system of incremental rewards. You have to find joy in the process itself. Belsky points to Zappos, the online shoe retailer famous for its incredible company culture. CEO Tony Hsieh built the entire company around one core value, happiness. He believes happiness is a more powerful motivator than money. They famously offer new hires a lump sum payment to quit at the end of their training period. The logic is simple. If you're not truly happy being there, you won't provide the world-class service they demand, so it's better for everyone if you leave. By focusing on happiness as the primary reward, they've created a team that's deeply engaged and committed to the company's long-term vision. Another way to create incremental rewards is through play. Jai Lee, a creative director at Google, makes every project feel like a game. Whether it's his famous Bubble project, where he placed blank thought bubble stickers on ads all over New York City, or his internal projects at Google, he finds an element of fun that keeps himself and his team engaged through the difficult middle stages. When you do start leading others, your greatest challenge is sharing ownership of your ideas. The more people who lie awake at night thinking about your project, the better. But this means letting go of control. It means trusting the people you've hired and allowing them to make decisions you might have made differently. As Peter Rojas, founder of the tech blog Engadget, says, "My approach is to hire people that I trust and let them do their thing. And if I don't trust them, I'll get someone else." Micromanaging might get you a result that's closer to your original vision, but it kills the sense of ownership that truly motivates a team. One of the most profound leadership lessons in the book is this simple rule for meetings: leaders should talk last. When a leader walks into a room and immediately says, "Here's what I think we should do," they've effectively shut down the creative potential of the entire team. The best ideas often come from junior members, the ones with fresh perspectives. But they'll never speak up if the leader has already dictated the direction. By asking questions first and listening patiently, a leader can draw out the collective intelligence of the group. Finally, self-leadership means developing a tolerance for ambiguity and a willingness to be a bit of a deviant. The path of innovation is, by definition, unpopular at first. It goes against the grain. As you pursue your vision, you'll be met with doubts from your family, your friends, your teachers. Belsky argues that you need to see this doubt not as a stop sign, but as a sign of progress. If everyone agrees with you, you're probably not doing anything truly new. Society celebrates the outcome of innovation, but it often rejects the process. You have to be willing to be misunderstood. And that brings us to the final motivating thought. Belsky asks us to imagine a backward clock. Imagine you knew the exact moment your life would end. Would you spend your time any differently? Would you still put off your great idea for one more year? That clock is real, even if we can't see it. The window of opportunity to act on our creative energy is always closing. Making ideas happen isn't about a single flash of brilliance. It's a commitment. It's a battle fought on three fronts: against our own disorganized minds, against the isolation that kills creativity, and against the psychological barriers that stop us from leading. It's the hard, gritty, and ultimately beautiful work of turning a thought into a thing. As we wrap up our journey through making ideas happen, I keep coming back to one central, powerful truth that runs through every page. Ideas are cheap. They're everywhere. What's rare, what's actually precious, is the capacity to execute. This book isn't just a bunch of productivity tips. It's a philosophical shift. It gently but firmly takes the halo off the creative genius and places it on the disciplined creator. It teaches us that the sweat is just as important, maybe more so, than the inspiration. For anyone young and ambitious, this is one of the most liberating lessons you can learn. It means your success isn't dependent on some magical, uncontrollable gift of creativity. It depends on a set of skills you can learn, practice, and master. The most powerful and immediately useful tool Belsky gives us is, hands down, the action method. In a world of overwhelming complexity, the idea that any project can be reduced to action steps, backburner items, and references is a lifeline. It's a way to cut through the noise and focus on what truly matters, the next step. If you take only one thing from our discussion today, let it be that. Tonight, take one of your own ideas, that project you've been putting off, and try breaking it down into those three components. Write down just one action step that starts with a verb. I promise you, the clarity and momentum it creates is immediate. But the book's wisdom goes so much deeper than just task management. The concept of the project plateau is a diagnosis for a feeling we've all had. That slump in the middle of a project where our passion fades. And the insight that the most dangerous escape is the allure of a shiny new idea is something every creative person needs to hear. It gives us a name for our enemy and a reason to fight through the slog. What I find most timeless, though, is the emphasis on community and leadership. In an age where it's so easy to feel isolated behind our screens, Belsky's reminder that ideas are refined and realized through human connection feels more important than ever. The archetypes of the dreamer, the doer, and the incrementalist provide a new lens for seeing ourselves and the people we choose to work with. It encourages us not to seek out people who are just like us, but people who complement us. So what can you do today to start putting these ideas into practice? First, try the action method on a single project. See how it feels to separate what's actionable from what's not. Second, identify which archetype you are, a dreamer, a doer, or an incrementalist. Then think about the people in your life. Who's your opposite? Who's the person that balances you out? Make an effort this week to connect with them. And third, share one of your ideas. It doesn't have to be your biggest, most precious one, just a small one. Tell a trusted friend or mentor about it. Notice how speaking it out loud makes it more real, and how their questions immediately start sharpening it. That was a summary of Making Ideas Happen by Scott Belsky. We've definitely hit the core principles today, but I'll be honest with you. A summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found when you walk the path yourself. The true magic of this book happens in those quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or simple phrase connects with your own experience in an unexpected way. This summary is a tool to help you decide if this book is worth your time and attention. If anything we've discussed today has sparked something in you, I'd encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change how you approach your life's work. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel. It tells us we're on the right track, and it makes sure you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.